3, 2, 1.
Open up, Colorado. It's 4:20. Time to grind and burn.
This is not your son Stoner Show.
And now, broadcasting live from the Dink Studios at 3835 Elm Street in Denver, Colorado. It's the Grind and Burn, a podcast from the Cannabis Community Project. Hey, Cannapreneurs, let me take a second just to tell you about Cushly Organic Products. Their company puts out products that are used in hospitals, healthcare facilities, clinics, and homes throughout the United States and beyond. So Cushly has invented this very unique product that works like none other. I use it myself, and many of my close friends and family use it. What it does is it eliminates odor. It doesn't mask it. It's not a perfume. It's not a cologne. It eliminates it. And it's organic and it's non-toxic. And Cushly is one of the best. www.cushly.com. Also find them on Facebook and other social media under the same name. Cushly Organic Products. No worries. You got a few minutes? You want to chat about what you wanted to chat about, and I'll record it for you. And
yeah, are you going to ask me any questions, or you want me to just run through what I'm doing?
Let me get a sense of what you're doing, and that will kind of help me understand what type of segment we should do.
Okay. Just to give you a quick recap of my life, I used to be a pharmaceutical sales rep. I was in a horrible car accident, was on pain meds, sleeping pills, muscle relaxants for 8 years, discovered medical marijuana. Now I don't take any pharmaceuticals at all. And I have become a huge medical marijuana advocate as well as working in the industry. And as I was finding my way with medical marijuana, I was having trouble keeping track of all the products that I was using, how it affected me, what I liked, what I didn't like. And so I created a medical marijuana journal for patients to use to track their medication, the products they're using, the amount, the time of day they're taking it. Did they have positive effects? Did they have negative effects? They can record other medication that they're taking and discuss that with their physicians. Did you achieve the symptom relief that you were seeking, and daily insights? And they can also record all the products that they're purchasing, plants, edibles, tinctures, vapes. They can list their favorite products, where they bought it. They can keep track of how much money they spent. So it's kind of an all-encompassing guide for patients when they get started using medical marijuana to kind of track what they're doing, because it's so different than traditional medicine where you get a prescription from your physician. You go to the pharmacy, they tell you how much to take, when to take it, why to take it. So it kind of just helps the patients along. So in discovering the need for a journal, I'm also partnering and creating a patient education website. And it's going to be a very interactive website. I know there's a few out there, but this one is set up to pretty much hold the hand of the patient from the time they consider using medical marijuana or getting their card to help them all the way through the process. So the website's being built as we speak. So that, in a nutshell, is where I'm at.
My name is Tyler Gunderson, and I work with Grow Wealth Financial, and we do financial services for the cannabis and hemp industries. Right now, we keep things a little bit more low-key, operate through email just so I can reach out and really find the situations where we can benefit the companies the most. I am the founder and owner. I founded it based on, I owned a dispensary here in Colorado in Fort Collins back in 2012, and I saw the need for businesses in the cannabis industry. Basically, they needed help with their financials, be banking, investing, how to grow their business, find outside investors, things like that. And that's really what my background. I've seen the power of what, cannabis can do to an economy, whether it's, your little towns all over the Colorado that are now businesses like you just mentioned are popping up, not even necessarily cannabis businesses, but, investments and investment banking. I also have my stockbroker licenses, so I can help people with that part of the industry. But right now, really the businesses that are in this industry, I recommend always putting your money back into your business and build something over time, gradually working in the traditional sense, or you can build a business and work when it's appropriate for you. Side investments. A lot of people are looking for seed money or getting their businesses up that don't have revenue streams yet. I do have routes to take, like you mentioned, Canopy, ArcView, and some other routes are out there that people that are creating startups can take. Really the companies that are producing revenue, that have figured out the regulatory issues within their company, that are looking to grow into new markets. And with any business, and especially when you're passionate about, and there's some passionate people in this industry.
Very good, Tyler. This was a great conversation. I appreciate you coming down.
I appreciate your time.
Learning all about you.
Yes, sir.
Very cool. Any last shout-outs, pieces of information, anything you came here hoping you would talk about that we didn't get to?
Not at all. I just wanted to let people know what we do and what we see in the industry and where things are going, and
Last year, there was over 200,000 people that came to Colorado. How many of them came to start a business? The competition is heating up. So if you have a business, an idea, or just some thoughts about cannabis that need to be shared with the community, do it on this show. Contact me at brainstorm@cannabiscommunityproject.com. Hey Cannapreneurs, this week's show is sponsored by Dairy Berries Recording Studio. Dairy Berries Recording Studio, located in Arvada, Colorado, is your local recording studio with affordable rates. Mark is well experienced and will make your show, music, or any audio you have sound great. He makes our show come across the internet loud and clear every week, and he can do the same for your project. Take a look at dairyberriesrecordingstudio.com or call Mark at 303-456-8216.
Hey, this is the Gentleman of Ganja, here to give you some tips and the proper etiquette of using cannabis. Now, this week we're going to talk about your equipment, your glass bongs. Please clean your glass bongs. It's nothing worse than going over someone's house and they still have the dirty water inside. Clean them out, guys. It doesn't take much. Little baking soda, little alcohol, shake it around. Clean it up. And if you're having a smoke session at your house, all your friends are not at all the same level. You have advanced smokers as well as beginners. So make sure you have the different utensils and equipment to please everybody. Remember, if you have any questions, email me at gog420@gmail.com. Remember, life is one big road with a lot of signs. Peace.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Bush. I'm the president of the Industrial Hemp Research Foundation, and I'd like to welcome you to the very first fundraising activity that the IHRF has put on. We're at the Greenhouse in Denver, and we have a lot of interesting things going on today. We have several speakers on the general topic of industrial hemp on the cutting edge in Colorado. So we have people talking about some of the newest developments and most recent happenings in the industrial hemp industry. We have some demonstrations going on for hemp fiber, hemp building materials. We have some people who are in the industry selling consumer products. They're here today to sell some of their products and show them off. And we also have a very interesting silent auction that features a lot of hemp-related products as well as some other things. While they're at it, we also have some good refreshments, and I think we're just going to have a very good time networking with one another and learning more about the hemp industry.
My name is John Patterson. I'm the educational director at Hemp Solutions. Well, I got introduced to hemp a long time ago, about when I was 8 years old. Imagine that, huh? We went out to my uncle's farm. It was like a 5-acre farm, and they had some Shetland ponies, and we'd ride those around and things. Well, one day we show up, and there's maybe 9 cop cars there, and this was the 60s, maybe early 70s, and it was very Barney Fife looking. And they were cutting down a plant, and they were burning it. And it was industrial hemp. It was feral hemp. It was growing in the ditch right out in front of, I remember his ranch was right across the road, and they said it was marijuana and that it was a dangerous drug and everything. And the family realized that it comes back every year. Nobody cut it down and smoked it and jumped off of bridges and things. It was a wild plant, and we had learned in our grade school years that industrial hemp was used for rope and sails, and that was about all that we learned. This was in Normal, Illinois.
And by normal, you're saying the normal part of the state?
Well, no, that was the name of the town. Near Bloomington, the University of Illinois is in that town.
So when you're saying it's a very small town, one sheriff type.
At this point.
Everybody knows everybody.
Back in the 60s.
You walk down Main Street and everybody knows your business kind of deal.
But they'd come from all over different cities and counties, I'm sure. And, that was the era that they chopped it down and burned it and tried to convince everybody that it was bad. And so that left a lasting impression. Not one that really came back into my psyche until I started finding out how to use industrial hemp to build houses with. And that came about because I was been a carpenter and always looking for better ways to build a house. And I got invited to take the green code building classes for the city of Fort Collins. And I was excited because I thought, well, maybe green building is hitting the mainstream and this would be good. But after sitting there for a few days, realizing that in an effort to green up our homes, we were using more chemicals and oil-based products to effectively keep the air from escaping a structure. But I didn't think that was very green. And so it was kind of a changing moment at the time. And I thought, well, I don't have anything better to offer. So how am I to complain? So I started doing a little research saying, well, maybe there is something better out there. And then that's when I found a hemp building class out in Wisconsin. And I signed up. Rich hemp history in Wisconsin as well. It should come back there. And that was part of why we were doing the work. So that's when I learned the basic way to mix hemp in a lime-based binder to come up with a thermal wall system.
Like the known hempcrete that people are building today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that system is a monolithic system. That means it covers the framing and things like that, and it's there's not very many places for air to escape.
Is it similar to a hay-built structures that are built and then they're covered on the outside with adobe?
Some similarities. A lot of the materials for the lime-based plasters and things that they use on the straw is similar to what we use to make the hemp lime system. How it's really different is straw bale leaves the straw loose inside of the house, and then they apply a plaster onto the exterior. Where with the industrial hemp, it's able to receive the lime binder so that the whole 9-inch wall system is a solid hemp and lime structure. And that replaces the drywall, the insulation, the exterior boarding.
So it's all just one, that's what you mean by
house wrap, the siding, the caulk, the paint, all in one thermal wall system that is more energy efficient, maintains a more constant temperature year-round. It's breathable, mold and mildew resistant, termite, insect, rodent resistant, and essentially a non-combustible material because of the way that it's mixed with the lime.
This
so you can't hardly burn it
today.
Well, yeah, I work as a consultant. Okay. I help people supply the source the material, both the hemp hurd and the binder, and then I teach workshops to train crews how to do it.
Oh, okay. But you learned this from your grandfather, or you just were exposed to hemp through him, but you didn't learn this until later on?
No, that just happened. Nobody knew anything about it back in the 70s. I just happened to be in the field. Okay. But I learned this from Steve Allen from Ireland about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. So many, many years later, you got involved in the industry. And,
of course, I discovered the cannabis plant way before I learned how to build houses out of it. Right. Growing up in the 70s, if you ever watched that 70s show, you might have some idea what was going on in my basement.
Well, it's good to know that you're at least involved in cannabis in one form or another. But nowadays, are you selling raw hemp? Are you growing hemp? Are you making this retail end product of the concrete hemp type stuff? What's the end business you're doing right now?
Well, with Hemp Solutions, we do a number of different things. Education is one of our main focuses, and so as educational director, kind of my role to enlighten people to industrial hemp in general. It's our philosophy that we really need to be building markets. We need to find end uses for the industrial hemp. If you're going to have enough farmers growing it or too many farmers growing it and you haven't developed the markets yet, then you got a problem. So it's kind of our role at Hemp Solution is to find new uses for it. One is hemp building. We also have a product that's hemp grow mats, so we grow microgreens and sprouts and things like that, and those are very popular in the horticulture, natural food and things like that. And so that's really what we do. It's education as far as the hempcrete. I could, build a few hemp houses in my lifetime, but I feel kind of motivated to be an educator and show people how it's not a very difficult system to mix. It's harder to find the sourcing of the hemp and the binders and things like that. So I work as a consultant through Hemp Solutions and helping people source the material and build hemp houses.
That's probably a better way to go out about it from, you don't want to buy up a whole bunch of products of hemp and stuff and then go out there and try to sell it on the market. You're probably better off being in the consulting side, a little less overhead.
Yeah, we source it by order. The more you buy, the closer you get to full container orders, then it gets to be a little bit more cost effective. And then other things that we're involved in are research and development of industrial hemp and really more building materials and then just the hemp lime construction, where we'll be working with engineers and scientists literally around the world, developing newer, higher tech building materials to meet the needs of the growing building industry. And that also extends even into energy, how we make and store energy using industrial hemp, more bio-based materials in general, but industrial hemp has a lot of really exciting capabilities in that higher tech
and cleanup,
materials.
Right? And environmental cleanup also.
Most definitely. Oil and gas reclamation and also water filtration and purification are things that we've got in the works right now.
Are you a broker, would you say, in the sense when you say you're helping people kind of source it? Are you brokering, or are you just strictly doing consulting where you're kind of pointing people in the direction?
Well, we kind of do both. Hemp Solutions, we have a warehouse in Michigan, and we import industrial hemp and the fiber rolls and the hemp herd.
Canada?
Mostly from Europe. We sometimes get it out of Canada, but it's not as consistent or as readily available as what we can get out of the European hemp market. They've been doing it so much longer.
Okay. I was going to say, I would have thought it would have been so much easier.
Canada has never really, they've specialized in seed primarily, so they really haven't got into the stock and the herd markets and things like that. Some of that is changing. We hear some companies maybe wanting to do more, but they've never really been able to provide it as consistent. And our role to build the market for the U.S. market. But we're not afraid or ashamed. We have to import it from Europe to build the proof of concept. Because we have to do that. We've got to get people educated. We've got to get them building houses, making things, growing things on the hemp, so that once the farmers are growing thousands of acres, they're able to sell those thousands of acres. And so we, help massage that whole process, help the processor succeed, help the farmers succeed, because we're developing markets out of it. And so we'll be a raw material supplier and also product development and commercialization of technology that already exists. Engineers and scientists that have figured out how to do these things, and we're going to help them to the next level because they've come up with literally world-changing ideas.
I want a hemp house. I think it would be cool. But I also have heard like BMW has hemp now in their cars, and I think there's a couple other car companies that are using more and more hemp for like side paneling and bumpers and other stuff. So once the bigger corporations really start getting involved in the hemp, that's where I think the takeoff happens. When BMW is making hemp cars, Nike, I think, just this month or last month had a hemp shoe go on the market publicly. So more and more bigger companies are now starting to promote the hemp. That's got to be good for the overall
most definitely.
industry.
And that those companies are getting into it was because they're finding it superior. It's lighter weight, it's stronger, there's all kinds of different advantages depending on your particular application. But in the automotive industry, that's exactly what it is. It's lighter and stronger, and that means things go faster with less fuel.
Like a fiberglass, you can make a panel on a bumper and the whole deal. You can make it fairly easy.
Yeah, and less toxic materials, because we're able to replace chemicals and fossil fuels with stuff that we can grow above ground in a short amount of time.
Were you a farmer before this? Is that how you got involved?
No, carpenter by trade. So I'd installed lots of different toxic materials, breathed it all in, cut it. And then when I really got into remodeling was when I realized how inferior our building systems were, because it was nasty, toxic and dust, and you would find mold and rot and things like that behind the walls and things. And so really kind of the remodeling industry is really I wanted to find something better, because I realized how inferior the way we were building houses was.
Well, I'll tell you now, if I ever get to the point financially where I can actually build my own house, I'm going to build a hemp house. Send you an email.
Well, definitely. Yeah. And you'd be surprised. It can be relatively affordable.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of different uses, and that's kind of what we promote. Is you might have think about the little coffee house that's in a tiny house, a human bean coffee. It's a little trailer thing, or a hotel room. Not that much bigger than 200 square foot. It's a tiny house, and so there's all kinds of applications. Even small retail stores. Think about a cannabis store inside of a hempcrete structure.
Just give
things
me an
like
idea.
that. So.
Yeah, I don't need to necessarily wait for a house. I could build a trailer studio, a structure,
office,
just a little 100 by 100 square foot little trailer. Have my mobile studio,
a getaway. Mobile studio. It would be perfect because it is good for sound mitigation. I work with one guy. He's a sound engineer, and he's got a very special thing that we were going to be building some hemp domes, and he really liked the structure of the hemp and thought that it was going to be a good, so that the sound doesn't bounce back. That's as you probably know, it's the bounce back sound, or maybe something that vibrates or something like that, and it's got a good surface area to be able to mitigate the problems with sound.
Well, that's really cool. I mean, so many possibilities. Where can people follow you the best? Would it be social media, the websites? Where do people follow you? Because I have a feeling people are really going to want to know about hemp building materials, and they're going to check out what you're talking about. So what's the best place to send people?
tinyhemphouses.com is my website, and you can see, kind of some photos and things like that, and some concepts of what we do with tiny hemp houses.
Okay.
And then our website for sourcing the grow mats and the herd and things like that is hemp-solutions.org. That's our corporate website out of Michigan. And of course, you can find me on Facebook. We do a lot on that. In fact, like everybody else, post interesting things, but we always have our workshops up on there, and that's Facebook/Hemp Homes.
Excellent. I appreciate you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
You do what you gotta do,
Who is speaking? Who are you? A mother, a father, daughter, son, teacher, next door neighbor, etc.? Remember to be very specific in your choices. Don't just be a teacher. Be a particular teacher. Go inside and find one. Think back and pull a suitable one out of your memory, or later out of your repertoire of characters, and become that person. How? Just as if you were getting dressed. Have a clear and detailed picture of the person in your mind, and then item by item, put his or her name, age, face, characteristics, mannerisms, clothes, and especially attitude.
She came to me as she can be. She told me, come on, Jesse, set me free. Cause I don't know why I can't feel like this. All of the time the sunshine is opening up my eyes. When it sings to my emotions. And I'm sitting on this beach and now I'm staring at this ocean. And it's so damn strange. I see these things so strange. I see peace when no one else sees these things. It's like, just wave your hands and just breathe and understand that someday you'll see this like a girl. run, I can't hide. I don't know why I still deal lines, but I still for my freedom and I still from inside. Sometimes I can't hide and I'm feeling like a reject. I never thought it'd be so hard to find a little respect, but the ways find a way always change. Don't matter what the situation, will find a way. Just wave your hands and just breathe and understand we'll make it there someday. Grab a hold of me, 'cause everything is gonna be alright.
Hi, I'm Shelley Johnson Ochoa, and I am a co-creator of the Medical Marijuana Journal, and I am also co-creator of the RoadToHealing.com, a website that's dedicated to patient education.
Very good. Now, the journal, can you explain a little bit more what you mean? Is this a physical journal, an online digital journal? How does that work?
Currently, it is a hard copy journal, and it can be purchased on our website, www.theroadtohealing.com, or it can be purchased on Amazon under My Medical Marijuana Journal, My MMJ Journal. So we are also in the process of producing a digital copy of this for our website as it's being developed. But for right now, it's a hardbound, and it's geared for patients who are getting started using medical marijuana, or they may have been using it for a while and want to have a means to keep track of the products that they're using, the type of administration that they prefer. So the journal's set up to where the patients can log the plants that they're buying, the edibles they're buying, the tinctures, the topicals, waxes, dabs, whatever they're into. They can keep track of it, where they purchased it, how much they paid for it. There's places to put how much THC and how much CBD is in there. They can list if it's a sativa, a hybrid, an indica. And then on the daily part of the journal, there's a pain scale that they can indicate what type of pain they're having or what type of symptoms they're having, the reason for taking their medication that day, the name of the product, the amount, the time of day they took it, positive side effects they may have had from using their medical marijuana, any negative side effects that they want to capture to avoid in the future. There's a place to also record other medications that they're using so they can share that with their physicians if they're working with them on their road to healing. And then there's a place to indicate whether or not the patient received the symptom relief that they were seeking when using medical marijuana, and they can explain it. And there's a place for a daily insight. Did anything different happen today than the last time you took the product? So it's an all-encompassing way to kind of track how the plant is working for them. Are they getting the symptom relief they're seeking? And most importantly, to track their favorite products and not forget which ones they really liked, which ones really worked for them.
Very cool. I definitely see how this could be beneficial to patients, especially those who are on a budget and have more extreme patient needs with their medication. And I can also very easily see how you're going to adapt this into an app to be smartphone friendly. Very cool. How long have you been working on this?
Probably about a year. We finished it right around the beginning of the year. And I was working with a partner who helped me design the entire book and the content of it. And she's also helping me do the website. And we have a web designer creating the RoadToHealing.com so that the journal and the website can kind of go hand in hand as patients begin their journey using medical marijuana. They'll have a resource to track their success and also track any stumbling blocks they may come across. Because when I first started using medical marijuana, I'm 50 years old, and I hadn't used marijuana since I was in high school or college. And I wasn't aware of how strong it was, and I took a couple of hits of something, and I sat on the couch and was vapor locked for about 2 hours, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm never going to try this again. But I'm so glad that I did, because medical marijuana has changed my life. I went from being somebody with 3 back surgeries, suffering from chronic pain, and having to take Percocet every day of my life for 8 years, plus muscle relaxants and sleeping pills just to get through the day. And now, 2 years later, I don't take any prescription medication. In fact, I'm even off blood pressure medication as a result of using medical marijuana. And so had I stopped because I had a negative experience in the very beginning, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And like I said, this plant has completely changed my life, and I want nothing more than to share this information with other people so that they have a chance at the symptom relief and success that I've had.
Congratulations on being able to transition off of the narcotics and the prescriptions.
Yeah.
That's exciting news for anybody else that's suffering out there, and it's a great backstory to really bring to your own business.
Exactly.
What demographic, if that's the right way to say it, who do you find would be the most apt, outside of just patients in general? Is this journal keeping something you find in older patients who are maybe used to taking daily medication and are able to follow? Or is there a specific technique or method you've developed in or this journal writing type system that allows really anybody to keep track of what they're doing?
I think initially I had a demographic of probably 40 years and older because the younger people are so into the digital access on the phones. And I found that for myself, I kind of like to put pen to paper and really reflect on what's happening for myself. And I know that people older than myself who struggle with the new technology with cell phones prefer it. But what I have found is if you look at a mother who's working with a child that has epilepsy and she's trying to track the results that her child is having by giving them tinctures and reducing the number of seizures that they're having every day, this is also a great tool for that person to track what's going on with their child, or if there's another type of caregiver that's dealing with a husband or a wife that might be suffering from Parkinson's, they can kind of track how their loved one is doing in the journal as well. So in the beginning, I kind of thought it would be for us older folks, and now that it's been out for almost 6 months, I see that anybody can use it and can benefit from it, especially if you're buying product and you're throwing it in a bag and you had a horrible headache or backache or whatever you're suffering from, and you had really good relief the night before, and you can't remember which product you used. And that happened to me 1,000 times where I was like, oh my gosh, what did I use last night that worked so well? And you dig in your bag and try to find, what it was that you had smoked or vaped or whatever edible you might be using. And so if you track this stuff, you can go to your book and say, oh yeah, I did this, and I used my vape, and it was a hybrid, and it was sativa dominant, and I took 2 hits. So you can track exactly what you're doing and the relief that you're getting so that you can go back. And it kind of narrows down because in the beginning, you try a lot of different product, and you might have good results with some and less desirable results with others. And then over time, you find out what you like, what's working for you, and you're saving yourself money by keeping track of all this stuff, and you're kind of filtering down your options to what really, really works for you in providing the symptom relief that you're seeking.
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff that, I guess in my opinion, really should have been happening from the beginning with caretakers and medical dispensaries, just overall helping patients understand the application and consumption and the tracking, because it is supposed to be applied like a medicine, and I don't think anybody else would take medication without tracking it. I don't think anybody would take even Tylenol or Advil just at a whim without realizing when the last time they took it or how much they took. I don't think that really crosses over for any other type of drug consumption. So it should definitely apply here too for the medical side of things.
Well, and I think that's where I'm coming from, having been a pharmaceutical sales rep for 10 years and having been in that industry. When I see people becoming interested in medical marijuana, I see this huge disconnect of them having no idea what it's about and how much responsibility falls on them. And for myself, even when I first became a patient, I thought someone was going to tell me how much to take, when to take it, why to take it, all of those things. And when I got my card, I was like, okay, now what do I do? And I go into a dispensary, and the people were very helpful, but I was still completely on my own,
right,
and having to go through that trial and error phase. And so people don't realize how separate it is from traditional medical treatments and pharmaceuticals,
right,
and how much responsibility does fall on them. So I think because it's a totally different way of medicating ourselves, it's important for people to understand that they do have a responsibility, because if not, if they don't pay attention, they could have a negative side effect, have an unpleasant experience, and then they're going to have to write it out. And, most people, I know, at least from my generation, want to avoid, getting really high off of stuff. And I know people like to do it recreationally, but for me, I don't want that feeling. I don't like to get super high, so I avoid that.
Well, having that person with you to educate you and bring you through those first trial and errors is very important. I mean, a bud tender is not your caregiver. A bud tender is, the equivalent of a guy standing behind a liquor store counter. If you ask him what beer is good, he might give you his opinion, and, there's not a lot of intimate relationship with caretaking going on in a dispensary, at least not here in Colorado. Bud tenders are typically pretty young, pretty minimum wage, and their experience is mostly on a consumption side and kind of a personal opinion based, not a lot of real medical integration in their opinions and how they deal with quote unquote patients. So what you're doing is definitely a valuable need. And I could only imagine somebody back in high school drinking 3.2 beer and then 20 years later going into a liquor store and saying, "What's this whiskey all about?" And, taking a few shots and then going, "Geez, that is not what I remember from when I was in high school." It's like, yeah, there's some different products out there going around, and things have changed. But to me, it's not an issue of potency. It's just an issue of education.
Exactly.
I mean, we definitely want potent medicine. We don't want medicine that is lacking in potency. We just need education to help people understand how to consume it and what they should expect and the effects it's going to give them. At least that's my opinion on that one. I mean, I do have a patient card, but I am by no means a patient that is suffering from critical type diseases that require a more extreme form of medication.
Exactly.
With many people I speak to are suffering from, epilepsy, and they're suffering from Crohn's disease, and they're suffering from cancers and all sorts of other things that require some very specific medication needs. Whereas my patient card, give me whatever you got and my ails can be eased, more or less. That's the type of patient I am. So there's different levels of patience, and sometimes I don't think people understand that. If you got cancer or Crohn's disease or something, you can't just take whatever and smoke it or do whatever and get the result. So good for you for really breaking through, I guess stepping out, which I would assume is a very lucrative career in pharmaceuticals. I mean, most pharmaceutical reps I know are making six figures, and they're very happy with the money situation, and they don't understand why anybody would want to do anything else.
Well, I was left with no choice after my accident in 2006. I was able to work for 5 more years, but after my third back surgery, I became permanently disabled in 2011.
Oh, wow.
And so there were a couple of years where I was scratching my head going, now what am I going to do? Because it hurts to sit for too long, and I have my limitations. But when I found medical marijuana 2 years ago, I also have a degree in biology. I fell in love with the plant as a medicine, and now I spend 90% of my day researching what's going on in the marijuana world, and I counsel a lot of my friends and family on how to get started and what they should consider as they move forward. So it's been kind of a blessing to stumble upon medical marijuana, because it's given me a different purpose in my life that I never imagined. It kind of came out of the blue, but I'm so grateful that it did.
What is your consumption? What are you taking for your own medical needs? Are you doing edibles, concentrates, flour, oils? What is your personal medical treatment?
I started out buying tinctures and smoking plant. And then I discovered the PAX 2 vape, and I fell in love with it. So I do that when I actually have flour. I make my own tinctures, and I make them with Everclear. I make my own topicals, and I do a little bit of edibles, but I'm kind of a lightweight, so I have to be careful and pick and choose which ones work for me without getting me too high. But I try a little bit of everything. I haven't done waxes and dabs yet, but I'm really comfortable with the tinctures that I use at night, and the topical that I use is amazing.
That's part of the whole educational process. Is taking edibles affects you differently. It runs through your body differently. It creates different types of chemicals versus smoking and other things. I would imagine you're going through kind of the last 2 years of a lot of trial and error, especially since it sounds like 2 years ago was kind of your first reintroduction since many years ago.
Exactly.
You've probably spent
exactly right.
many a nights doing trial and errors on various products. And I don't know how well Arizona is. I don't know if we actually established you're in Arizona. You're in the Tucson area, is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm not too familiar with Arizona laws and what the situation is, how, dispensaries are operating, what the availability of different products are. Can you walk into a dispensary and have everything from concentrate to edible to flower at your disposal?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, we don't have recreational here, but we do have the medicinal, and the dispensaries here are amazing. A lot of them grow their own plants and have specific strains that they specialize in. In fact, I get a really high CBD strain from the dispensary that I frequent. They have drinks and different edibles. They're actually creating their own waxes now. They have everything, the whole gamut of what's available.
Good to hear, because I hear some of the newly emerging states have yet to really get into concentrates. They haven't quite figured out the whole extraction of what's going on with extraction in medical patients. So they're still just kind of dealing with flour, which is good, but as we kind of talked about, some patients, flour just doesn't cut it. They need high potent concentrates, and they need to consume it through commonly known as things like dabbing.
Exactly.
In other forms. As I just saw the other day, I think we're 25 plus states now that are medicals. I think we've tipped the 50% scale in our country.
It's about time. Thank God. Now if we can just get it decriminalized, it'll be great.
What is your immediate circle, your family and friends think of this? Because 2 years is not a long time. Coming from a corporate world is kind of a whole different culture, being in corporate America. And you had to make the transition, and I assume you didn't hide it too much. So what was the reaction amongst your inner circle?
It was, I think, when I first told my mom, she was kind of standoffish a little bit. Like, I don't know what this is about, but my mom's always been very supportive of me. Now, she's my biggest fan, and she shares the information that I give her with her friends. My mom's 75. She's had several people get cancer this year.
Oh.
So she shares a lot of information with them. She shares my website and my medical marijuana book. If there's people that are interested in it, she's always sharing it. In fact, I'm going to be doing a lecture with a bunch of her friends. There's 3 that have cancer, a couple that have had knee replacement surgeries, and so I'm going to be talking to the 75-year-olds about medical marijuana and how it might be able to benefit them. So my mom's become my greatest fan. I have a lot of very religious family members that are totally behind me, and they have no problem with it. I have friends in the law enforcement community that I was kind of reluctant to talk to them about it, but over time they've seen how this plant has changed my life and how it's been able to allow me to come off of narcotics. So everyone's behind it. And I think in the beginning, 2 years ago, people were kind of looking at me, scratching their head, going, I don't know about this. But now, 2 years later, when they see the change that's happened in me and how this plant has literally given me my life back, they're all for it. And I'm sure a lot of them have crossed the threshold and are actually trying it themselves.
So good to hear. I thought for a second you were going to say, when you were talking about your mom, that now she shares. I thought you were going to say now she shares a joint with me. But
no, if my dad were alive, if my dad were still alive, he would be sharing the joint with me.
There you go.
In fact, he passed away of cancer 4 years ago, and I wish I knew what I knew now then, because he was actually growing marijuana 6 months before he passed away, because I think he had been getting glimpses of marijuana and cancer and how it might benefit those patients.
Yeah.
But had I known that, what I know now then, I think I could have really helped my dad prolong his life, or at least be more comfortable in the end.
I have the exact same sentiment myself. My brother, about 4+ years ago, I guess a little bit more now, 2009, also passed. He had leukemia. And ironically, as I talk about, he was also a grower. He was a grower in Northern California in the Emerald Triangle. I mean, as short a time as it seems, 2009, the high potent concentrates in the wax oil shatter forms just wasn't quite where it was even just back in 2009. And ironically, as a grower himself, all he was consuming was flower, and it just wasn't hitting the pain. He was taking 80 milligram oxycodones, multiple throughout the day towards the end there. And now when I look back, I think, literally within 6 months to a year is when kind of the widespread here in Colorado and the formation of this concentrate really became more public. Even if it just had been a matter of months or years, possibly, he could have also received additional help. So I think about that exactly, how you're kind of describing your father's situation. It happened, the past is the past, and now I look towards people who are alive and suffering, and especially when it comes to the kids. And, here in Colorado, we meet families every day that are coming from all over the place, desperately leaving their homes and their situations, their jobs, everything they have, and living out of their car just to be in a state where they can purchase the cannabis they need at the potency and dosages that they need to treat their children. And it's sad, and it's what we're dealing with every day. So I take these issues just as personally, even as I described, I'm a very low-level patient myself, but, I still qualify. I still have the card.
Right. Well, I think we all experience pain, and cannabis is very effective at helping that.
Do you remember the moment when you said, I'm leaving my former life and I'm venturing off into this new path? Or was it kind of a slow transition?
No, it was a lightning bolt moment for me. I was being treated at a pain clinic here in Tucson, and they had been doing nerve ablations in my low back, where they go in and they take a hot probe and burn the nerve so that the impulse doesn't travel through the rest of my body so that I wouldn't feel it. And I had several of those, and I was going to get my pain prescriptions every 2 months, and I'd get drug tested to make sure I wasn't using cannabis at the time. I walked out of the office one day. They wanted to put the next step, because they had done everything they could, was to put a device in my back, a permanent device that would be a nerve-blocking stimulator that if I was experiencing pain, I could turn the volume up on the side, and the device would block the pain sensation. And they wanted it was going to be a permanent device under my skin, and I walked out and I said, I can't take this anymore. I'm not going to be a pincushion, because I was a cash cow for them. They'd see me walk in the door, and it's like, okay, what can we do with her this week? I just got tired of them sticking me and trying these different experiments on me to get rid of the pain. So I walked out the door, and I thought to myself, I've got to try something different. I decided to stockpile my pain medication and try medical marijuana for about 3 months. And I told myself, if the medical marijuana works, I'm going to leave the pain clinic for good. Because I knew I couldn't do the pain medication and the medical marijuana, because the pain doctors don't like you using them in combination. So I decide to walk out the door and go and get my medical marijuana card, and I went down that road and started using medical marijuana. And at first, it didn't take the pain away as effectively as the narcotics did, but I would take the two in conjunction. I'd use a little bit of Percocet and then a little bit of medical marijuana. And over time, as I built up the CBDs in my system, the pain started subsiding. And I woke up one day and I was like, oh my gosh, it's working. And I never went back. And it's been 2 years now, and I've only filled one pain pill prescription in 2 years, and it's only because I had knee surgery last summer, and I had to get some post-operative pain relief using pain meds. Other than that, I've had absolutely no pain pills filled in 2 years.
Wow, that is so encouraging and just awesome to hear. I mean, obviously, everybody's situation is different, and I think the way you kind of stated it, the initial reaction is good to throw out there, because narcotics are a hard thing to compete with. If you're accustomed to taking, if you're accustomed to taking opiates and some hardcore narcotics, cannabis isn't going to just come in on the first try and overwhelm that, because narcotics are powerful for a reason, and that's why people get hooked on them, and that's why they destroy your body, because they're powerful.
Exactly.
I think it's good, because people who are suffering may tell themselves, well, I'll try it once to see if it works, but if it doesn't work, then forget it, where you may be shooting yourself in the foot with that type of attitude, that there's a transition process that needs to happen in many senses, not just the drug itself, but also maybe mentally and emotionally.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more, because like I said, I almost stopped when I took the 2 puffs of marijuana and I got a little higher than I wanted to get. And I remembered having that thought like, oh, I'll never do this again. But I was so tired of doing pain medication, the narcotic pain medication. I was so tired of the constipation and the nausea and the way these pills made me feel, especially after being on them for 8 years. I was done. So for me, this was my last option. After everything else that they had given me and tried on me to work through the chronic pain, I didn't have a choice but to push through and to really discover whether or not this was going to be the right option for me. And I am so grateful every single day that I did, because I don't feel sick anymore. I don't feel nauseous when I medicate. I actually feel good. I mean, marijuana does make you feel good. And, I'm happier now, and I don't get constipated because I'm not taking opioids, and I feel totally different using this plant. And I just can't say enough about it. And the more I learn about it, the more excited I get, because, having my degree in biology, and I worked in genetics for a couple of years at the University of Colorado, the Health Science Center. I love all the different facets of what cannabis is doing and can do, and all the different components of it. And I think we've got an incredible future with this plant, and as far as medicine goes. And it makes me excited that there's options out there that aren't pharmaceuticals.
If you would have had you back when you were first starting out guiding you, you would have told yourself to look for more CBD, higher quantity of CBD in the flower you're smoking, whereas initially you probably grabbed whatever they sold you, which probably had a good amount of THC in it and was giving you that head high feeling, that psychoactive effect. Whereas now, when you're dealing with somebody, you can help guide them into their purchases so they don't have those first reactions.
Right. That's what the website's going to be all about. And it would be, teaching somebody, if you're suffering from chronic pain and these are the results that you want, then this is going to be the education we provide. We're going to have seminars and classes available on the website. The videos and the classes will be enhanced, and they're going to be written in a way that we know that adults learn. There's a specialist that writes classes that's working with me to really capture and explain to people, formatted the way that they learn as adults. So it's not just me throwing a bunch of stuff onto a website. We're putting a lot of thought into this so that I can take my experience as a patient and the trials and errors that I went through, and to try to help people avoid that by giving them as much information up front that I can put on this website in whatever time frame I have to put it on. Because, like you said, I had to realize that I am a high CBD patient. That's what I prefer. And the more I learned about the different levels of THC and CBD in a plant, now I can identify it. I can go onto Leafly and pull up, any strain that I want and see what's in there and pick the plant according to what I want. And if it's available at my dispensary, then I'm golden. And now there's all different other components in the plant, the CBNs and all the other things. I can pick and choose which medical property I want the plant to possess, and then I can take it. And not everyone's going to be at that level, because I kind of have a scientific mind, and I like picking things apart like that. We want to be able to put the education that the person's looking for on the website so that it covers the whole gamut, whether they're a beginner or a more advanced patient. We'll have information available for them.
I wonder if there's a way you could interface this with dispensaries on a network that you could create, so when a patient is going to a dispensary, they can forward their quote-unquote profile of what they need or what they're looking for to the dispensary. So when the patient arrives, the dispensary already has the information of what the patient's looking for, what they need, and then vice versa. Once they purchase that, then it updates that person's diary or their profile, automatically interfaces from the dispensary back to the digital diary. So all the information is kind of taking place along with the patient, kind of relieving them of some of that manual data entry and keeping track of things themselves.
Huh. That's a good idea. I'll have to look.
I wonder how many dispensaries would be willing to work with you and create a network of patients. Patients that frequented, these specific dispensaries, they had the ability to maybe forward their diary profile onto the dispensary before arriving to help facilitate the purchase. And then once the purchase was over, it kind of updated their diary digitally, somehow interfaced or pushed that information out. I mean, obviously, this would all be in a digital form once you get to that.
Exactly.
Once you get to that point, because I don't see any downside of anything keeping track of what you're doing. It works the same with food to gas in my car to pretty much everything I do. I keep track of it for monetary reasons. I mean, we're all on a budget. But just general consumption reasons. You want to know how much you're consuming, right?
I've been working with a couple of physicians, and we were actually looking at interfacing the digital journal with physicians and giving them an access code for them to download the journal so that they could see how their patient is doing. Like, let's say if it's a neurologist who specializes in migraine and they're now recommending medical marijuana in conjunction with the migraine medication they might be prescribing, they can actually track how the patient's doing. And doctors love that kind of stuff, especially with diabetes and migraine and different things. They want to track what the triggers are and what's working and what's not working. So we had kind of looked at interfacing it with physicians, but that's a great idea to consider with the dispensaries also.
Yeah, maybe patients can just carry their own profile on a keychain with like a QR code. So whether the doctor, the dispensary, or whoever they're dealing with can just scan the QR code and the patient gives them instant access on spot to access that website. And that way they don't have to worry about the actual transfer of documents per se, or, sending documents via online or anything else. But it's other people just accessing a central database from the patient. All things that businesses can develop into over the years. It's kind of what's exciting about startups is that you start in one place and then things kind of grow and they move and they change. And before you know it, a couple years down the line, you're sitting on a product that is maybe even better than where you started. Hopefully, right? That's the goal.
Yes.
So
it all evolves.
Where do you see it in the next few years? Is this your full-time gig? Is this what you do now?
Yes. It is my full-time gig. It's obviously, the website is in the beginning stages, but we're so excited about how it's turning out. We meet a couple times a week to discuss and to add content to it. And like we were just discussing, it's evolving. It started out as one thing, and it keeps evolving and evolving. And when we first got started, the web designer's like, oh, yeah, we can do this. And then we're having to add to it because we're making it so deep and so rich that it's becoming bigger than we ever imagined, which is kind of cool.
That's the thin edge of the sword that you're on right now, is you're in a position to realize all the potential and to modify things, but that can also slice you right in half, kind of going down that rabbit hole of there's always changes and modifications, and then before you know it, you're so far away from the original business model that you're dealing with a completely different business altogether. So this is a very critical time that you're in. Is this a for-profit or a non-profit entity you're pursuing?
We haven't completely committed to that yet. The website is most likely going to be a membership, and we're looking at $5 a month. Okay. And that's one model that we're looking at, or we might sell advertisement on the website. We haven't considered nonprofit at this point. But as we get closer to the completion date, we're trying to figure out exactly how we want to do it. Like I said, it's going to be different than any other website that's out there because there's so much information that patients can go and find on the website, but a lot of it's very cerebral. There's a lot of reading to do. This is more interactive with videos and classes and, quick 5-minute did you know type of segments, things that you might want to consider. And then we're also looking at setting up private forums for patients to, like if there's a group of patients that are suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, we would have a forum for them to discuss what they're doing, what's working for them, and kind of give them a sense of community and a place to share what's happening with them. And these people tend to be kind of isolated. They don't go out as much because they're homebound and they're not feeling good. And unfortunately, when people have chronic illness, they start suffering from depression and feeling that isolation. So part of what we're trying to incorporate on the website is that sense of community and a place to belong and exchange ideas and exchange what products are working for which disease state that they might have.
I would recommend, as I do to everybody that asks me, as well as I do in my own business, is a hybrid of all three. Because what I've experienced myself and what I've also seen in other startups, very small startups, is that one or the other doesn't typically support the entirety of what's needed. It's typically a hybrid between a membership, a little bit of advertising or sponsorship, as well as selling something, which I think is very crucial and important. But that third leg of a revenue stream that I believe is very important, get other people to give you money through advertising or sponsorship, get members directly to give you money, but also provide something that you can sell where there's a percentage of income worked in somehow. And that's where I've seen the most success for myself. If I were just to do one over the other, I don't think I would be able to survive because I don't make enough from just advertising and I don't make enough from just direct membership. I have to sell products, I have to have advertisers, and at the same time I have to offer direct sales to members. And it's the combination of the three that really make ends meet and help me going month after month. So you may find that in your own situation that you have to form a hybrid of 2 or 3 revenue streams to really make things go.
That makes sense. I appreciate that.
This is a good time for you, right? You're in your business. You're starting out. Are you living off of savings or did you get some type of investments? Are you currently making a revenue through the company to support it? How's it staying afloat?
We're making some revenue from the medical marijuana journals that we're selling, and some of the money is coming out of my savings and investing in it. We don't have investors. It's going to be just from us at this point, the 2 creators. I had some savings to invest into the business, so we're going to give it a year or 2 to see if it takes off, and I kind of have no doubt that it will because I think there's such a need for patient education in this industry.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of that missing link. There's a lot of stuff available, but the patient's kind of left sitting there going, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
So
if I can suggest 3 years instead of the 1 or 2, 1 or 2 may not be enough to actually get the traction developed to where it needs to be. 1 or 2 may be enough time, but it also might not be enough where if you stop after a year or 2, you might have been 6 months or 9 months down the line from really getting things pulled together. I think less than 3 years, you might be cutting yourself short just a little bit in expectations, especially if you're going to invest so much of your own money into it. I mean, I'm kind of a compulsive person, so I tend to go for broke for a lot of things.
Right.
But that's just me. It just depends, I guess, your own finances. But the last thing we would hate to have is a wonderful product and true potential to help people. But because 18 months down the line, it hasn't quite built the traction, you give up on it. And it's not just you that loses. Everybody else that could have benefited also loses from not having your business out there in society. So I think 3 years would be a better expectation of where to really look at the marker of the things taking off. 'Cause we're going to have to just keep following up on you. And I understand you're coming to Colorado in the next couple months, possibly?
Well, I was hoping to, but we had a little bit of a delay in the launch of the website. As soon as I have the foundation of the website, I'm going to go up there and talk to some people about it and do demonstrations of what we have so far. But I'm kind of holding off until we're closer to the actual launch date of it before I make any travel plans, because it seems like when you're dealing with digital technology, glitches come up and they have to be addressed, and there's not always easy fixes when you're building a website. So probably going to be a little bit later than sooner at this point. Probably sometime in the summertime, maybe the end of summer.
Well, will you promise us to stop by the studio when you are in town, sit down with us again?
Absolutely.
Just give us some more inside details to what it's like trying to start a business, trying to be a patient, navigating through this industry and helping other people.
people at the same time trying to keep yourself afloat. So when you're in Denver, let me know so I can have you in the studio. We can talk some more. We can have people learn more about your business as well as your own backstory of how you're getting this business up and going, because that's really what we want to focus on this show, is helping people understand how to do what you're doing, how to make that transition into the industry and do it in such a way that you can feel safe and confident, not lose all of your money at one time, but not have to go into a minimum wage bud tender job somewhere just because you want to be in the industry also.
Exactly. There's a lot of opportunity in this industry. I think if you're creative and determined, you can probably go a long way if you find the right niche.
Yes. Excellent.
I promise I will come and sit with you, and I thank you for that opportunity. And I thank you for the opportunity today to discuss this with you. It's been fun.
I appreciate you talking with me. Let's make sure to get your information out there so people can look you up, they can find you and talk to you. Maybe somebody has an idea that they can collaborate with you on. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I just like to get people networking together, because that's really where things happen, is just when people get together. So give us your email or your social media or wherever you want people to go and check you out and then be able to communicate with you.
My new email address is Shelley, SHELLY, theroadtohealing@gmail.com. And then the website is theroadtohealing.com. And if you go there today, there's a placard on there that says we're under construction, but there is some content on there if you want to see a picture of me and kind of my story and what was there before we started creating it. The website's being created offline, so they won't be able to see the new product until we launch it. If somebody really wants to get a hold of me, send me an email, and then we can talk one off, and I can give them my cell phone number. When the website's launched, it'll connect into the social media, because I do have a My Medical Marijuana Journal page that's linked to my personal Facebook. I'm in LinkedIn, I'm in Twitter, I'm in all of that, so when the website's ready, they can click into all of that and find me.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your time today. This has been very informative. I appreciate you spending the time to teach us about your business and also your own personal backstory. And we look forward to hearing from you again, hopefully in person next time here in the studio.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.
You have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.
There you go, Cannapreneurs. That's all I have for you this week. Thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to come back next week. And after the show, you can always carry on the conversation with us on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, Massroots, and so much more. Even YouTube. Stay involved. Next week, we're going to have more conversations that you want to hear, more guests that are going to help us take it to the next level. This is your show, so come back. We'll see you next week.